Chapter 1. The Midnight Intrusion. The clock on the hostel wall struck midnight. The long corridor outside was silent, the kind of silence that wrapped itself tightly around your throat. A gentle breeze rustled through the slightly open window of room 308, carrying with it the scent of rain and the distant hum of thunder. Anaya Sen lay on her bed, half curled under a light blanket. The soft blue light of her desk lamp bathed the room in a glow that made shadows dance across the walls. Her books were still open. Virginia Woolf stared back at her from a wrinkled page. But her eyes weren't on the book. They were on the flickering curtain, twitching ever so slightly. She brushed it off as wind. But then she heard it. Tap, tap. Not at the door, at the glass. Anaya's heart tightened. She turned her head toward the balcony door. The curtain moved again. This time, she sat up. The hostel had strict rules. No boys after 8 p.m. No boys ever on the balcony. Room 308 was on the third floor. Who could possibly be tapping from outside? Her fingers clenched the edge of her blanket as she stood slowly, her bare feet making no sound on the cool tile floor. She tiptoed toward the window, her breath hitching. Then, in one horrifying moment, the curtain flew up. A man leapt over the railing and through the open glass. She let out a short, sharp gasp, tried to scream, but he lunged forward and clamped a hand over her mouth. "Don't," he whispered, voice low, urgent. "Please, don't scream." His eyes were dark, wild, but not empty. They weren't the eyes of a madman. They were the eyes of someone desperate. His face was shadowed by the dim light, jaw sharp, lips slightly parted. There was a tiny scar across his left eyebrow. Anaya's back hit the wall. He didn't move closer. He wasn't holding a weapon. His hand gently loosened from her mouth. "I'm sorry," he whispered again. "I didn't mean to scare you. I had to see you." Her throat was dry. Who are you?" He looked at her for a long time, eyes flicking across her face like he was memorizing her. "Ishan?" he said softly. "My name is Ishan." She had never seen him before. Before she could ask another question, he moved, quickly, toward the balcony. "Wait," she called. But he had already climbed over. By the time she rushed to the railing, he was gone. The shadow below, if there was one, was lost in the dark trees surrounding the hostel compound. She stared down for a long time, heart pounding against her ribcage. The night had returned to silence, but nothing felt the same anymore. She shut the window, locked it with trembling fingers, and stepped back. That's when she saw it, something glinting on the floor near her bed. A silver chain. She bent down slowly and picked it up. It was old, scratched. Hanging from it was a charm, a tiny star, and engraved on the back in tiny letters was a date. July 7th, 2004. Her birth date. Anaya's breath caught. She clutched the chain tightly in her palm, her pulse roaring in her ears. Who was he? And how the hell did he know her birthday? Chapter 2. The Silver Star. The next morning, Anaya woke up feeling like she hadn't slept at all. Her eyes burned from exhaustion, and her heart still hadn't found its usual rhythm. She sat up slowly, the silver chain still wrapped around her fingers like a question that wouldn't leave. Had she dreamed it? No, the chain was real. And her window was still locked now, the curtain neatly tucked behind the glass. But something was different. Her room felt smaller, the air heavier. She kept looking toward the corner where he had stood just hours ago. "Ishan," The name echoed in her mind like a whisper laced with danger. And something else. Familiarity. The way he looked at her. It wasn't the gaze of a stranger. It was like he'd seen her before. Like he knew her. She held the chain up to the morning light. The engraving on the back of the star shimmered under the sun. July 7, 2004. Her fingertips grazed the charm. That wasn't just a coincidence. No one could guess a birthday like that. It meant something. But what? She reached into the drawer beside her bed and took out her journal. She scribbled down every detail she remembered about the night. Midnight knock. Jumped in through the balcony. Knew her name. Said he had to see her. Left without taking anything. Left behind the chain. Said his name was Ishan. A knock at the door jolted her from her thoughts. She froze. Not again. But this time, it was Maya, the warden. Anaya? Maya's voice was stern as usual. Are you ready for breakfast? You missed the first bell. Anaya quickly shoved the chain into her desk drawer. Yes, ma'am. Coming. She opened the door with a forced smile. Maya looked at her closely. Didn't sleep well? Just a rough night. The warden's eyes narrowed slightly, and for a moment, Anais felt like she knew something. But Maya simply gave a short nod and moved on. Anaya grabbed her backpack, threw her journal and a few books into it, and headed down to the cafeteria. The corridor was filled with sleepy voices and the scent of stale toast. Her friends were already sitting at their usual table. Morning, sleeping beauty, Rhea teased. You look like you've seen a ghost. Anaya gave a weak laugh. Maybe I have. No way, said Tara. Don't start with your horror stories again. Anaya bit into her toast, but her eyes kept drifting to the window. She couldn't stop thinking about him. Where had he gone? Was he watching her now? By the time classes began, her head was spinning. Literature class usually calmed her. Poetry and prose were her escape, but today she couldn't focus. She kept thinking about that silver charm in her drawer. Then something strange happened. As Professor Malhotra walked past her row, she noticed him glance at her, or rather, at her bag. Not with concern, with recognition. Her fingers curled around the strap instinctively. That same bag now held the journal, and inside the journal, her notes about Ishan. After class, she approached him. Sir? She asked cautiously. Professor Malhotra stopped, arching a brow. Yes, Anaya? Do you believe memories can be lost? Like completely erased? He smiled faintly. The mind protects us in strange ways. Sometimes it buries things too painful to remember. Can they come back? His smile faded just slightly. Sometimes, but often, it's better to let sleeping ghosts lie. He turned and walked away. Her breath caught. Why would he say that? That night, back in her room, Anaya couldn't help it. She opened her window again, sat by the glass for an hour. 2. She didn't know if she was hoping or dreading that Ishan would return. But he didn't. Only the wind came. And when she turned off the lights and climbed into bed, she realized something she hadn't felt in years. She was scared to sleep, because in her dreams now, he was waiting. Chapter 3. Shadows from the Past. 3 days passed. 3 nights of staring at the same window. No Ishan. No sound. No sign that the midnight intruder had ever existed. Except for the silver chain still hidden in her drawer. Anaya couldn't sleep. Couldn't eat properly. Every shadow in her room made her heart race. Every footstep in the corridor outside her door made her freeze. Something inside her had shifted. And it wasn't just fear. It was curiosity, a hunger for the truth. Who was he? Why did he know her birthday? And more terrifyingly, why did she feel drawn to him? On the fourth evening, she couldn't take it anymore. She needed answers. After dinner, she slipped away from the hostel under the pretense of going to the library. But instead of heading to the campus study hall, she walked across the street to the small tea shop that older students used to frequent. It was quiet now, with only 2 customers inside. She ordered a masala chai and sat in the corner, notebook in hand. She flipped back through her journal, rereading every detail. Then, on impulse, she drew his face. What she remembered of it: dark eyes, scar over the eyebrow, crooked grin, that strangely familiar sadness. She stared at the sketch. Her hand moved almost on its own, and when she was done, she realized what she'd drawn wasn't a stranger. It was someone she almost recognized. A face from a childhood dream. A ghost from a story she couldn't recall fully. A boy she might have once loved. The thought startled her. She pulled out her phone. If Ishan had been someone from her past, maybe, just maybe, there was a record. She went to her gallery, scrolled to her old childhood albums, the ones her mom had uploaded to the cloud years ago. There, in one faded picture, a birthday party. July 7, 2004. A cake with pink candles. A girl in a yellow dress, herself at age 5. And standing next to her, a boy with dark eyes. The same scar, the same smile. Ishan. She gasped out loud. He wasn't a stranger. He'd been at her 5th birthday, but she had no memory of him. None at all. She clicked through the album. More pictures. The boy was there in almost all of them. Always near her. Protective. Close. She looked down at the chain again, the one he had left behind. Maybe he hadn't meant to scare her. Maybe he had come back because of something they'd once shared. Her heart thundered as she whispered his name. Aishan. Later that night, back in her room, Anaya sat by the window, chain in one hand, phone in the other. She tried searching his name, but there were too many Ishans in the city. No last name, no clue. Then at exactly 2:12 a.m., a message arrived. No number, no contact name, just one sentence. You finally remember me. She stared at the screen, breath frozen. How did he know? She typed back, fingers trembling. Who are you really? The reply came within seconds. Aishan. From the river. From the storm. From your birthday. Anaya dropped the phone. Her chest tightened as memories she didn't know she had began to stir. A river. A rainy day. A boy pulling her out of the water. But it wasn't just that. She remembered falling, slipping on wet rocks, and then warm hands grabbing her waist, lifting her. His voice. I won't let go, Anaya, I promise. Tears welled in her eyes. It wasn't just a memory. It was a bond. She picked up the phone again and typed slowly. Come back. Tell me everything. There was a pause. Then, tonight. Don't lock your window. Anaya stared at the glass. Was she crazy for saying yes? Probably. But something in her heart whispered. He was never the danger. He was the one who saved you. Chapter 4. A touch before the truth. Anaya didn't sleep. Wouldn't. She sat on the edge of her bed, the silver chain wrapped tightly around her wrist like a lifeline. Her window stood open, letting in the cool midnight air, carrying with it the scent of wild jasmines blooming somewhere in the garden below. The last message from Ishan repeated in her mind like a heartbeat. Tonight. Don't lock your window. Time slowed. She could hear the ticking of her wall clock, the distant murmur of someone turning in their bed down the hall, and then nothing. Silence, deeper than any she had ever felt, until she heard it, a soft scrape, then the faint thump of footsteps on her tiny balcony. Her breath caught in her throat. She turned, slowly, and there he was. Ishan, dressed in black again, but not like a criminal, like someone fading in from the night itself. His eyes met hers, intense, deep, brimming with everything he hadn't said yet. "You remembered," he whispered. "I saw the photo," Anaya replied, barely able to find her voice. "We were kids. You saved me?" Ishan stepped inside, quiet as moonlight. He reached out gently and brushed a lock of hair from her face. "I never stopped watching over you after that day, but something happened. You forgot me. I was 5. I know." His voice was soft, broken around the edges. "But I didn't forget. Not the river, not the storm, not you." Anaya felt her heart tug. His presence was overwhelming. Not dangerous, magnetic. Her instincts screamed to run, but not from fear, from the terrifying pull she felt toward him. "Well now?" she asked, stepping closer. "Why did you come back?" Ishan's jaw clenched. "Because something's coming, Anaya. And I'm the only one who knows." "What are you talking about?" "There's a reason your memory was erased," he said. "There's more to what happened on your 5th birthday. And someone didn't want you to remember." A chill ran through her. He stepped even closer, close enough that she could feel the warmth of his breath. "I've waited years to see you again," he murmured. "But this wasn't how I imagined it." Her voice shook. "How did you imagine it?" He looked away, pain flickering in his eyes. "Not with fear in your heart, not thinking I was some kind of intruder. I wanted to protect you." Anaya reached up without thinking, touched the scar above his brow. He flinched, but didn't pull back. "Was this from that day?" she asked. "Yes," he whispered. "I hit my head on a rock when I dove in after you." Silence stretched between them like a thread about to snap. "Ishan," her voice softened. "You didn't have to come back." His gaze darkened with emotion. "But I did. Because I never stopped feeling what I felt that day, even if you don't remember it." Anaya's heart thudded. "What did you feel?" He took her hand, slow and careful, as though she might vanish again. "I felt something I couldn't explain, something that didn't fade, and now, even after all this time, I still feel it." Their fingers interlaced, and for a moment, the fear dissolved. All that remained was the unspoken connection between them. Fragile, raw, powerful. He leaned in, his forehead brushing hers. "If you want me to go, say it now." She didn't say a word, because she didn't want him to go. Not anymore. But outside, in the shadows beyond the hostel wall, another figure stood watching. And they weren't here for romance. They were here for revenge. Chapter 5. The One Who Watches. The air turned colder after Ishan left. It wasn't just the wind sweeping through the open window. It was the weight of something unseen, something sinister, crawling just beneath the surface of Anaya's fragile reality. He had kissed her forehead before leaving, whispering, "I'll explain everything soon, but not here. Someone's watching you." And now, even with the window locked and her curtains drawn, Anaya felt it too. Eyes. Somewhere out there, someone was watching. The next day passed in a blur. Her body sat through lectures, her mouth chewed tasteless food, but her mind, her soul, was trapped in that midnight moment with Ishan and the chilling warning he left behind. By evening, she couldn't bear it anymore. She slipped out again. This time, not to the tea shop. She went to the old records room in the administrative building, a dusty basement that students rarely visited. If Ishan had really been part of her past, maybe there was something here. The lights flickered overhead as she descended the stairs. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through old photo archives, yearbooks, birthday event logs. Then, there it was. A file labeled July 2004, Children's Summer Camp, River Rescue Incident. Her fingers shook as she opened it. The report was brief but chilling. Child rescued from river by another participant. The boy suffered a head injury. Mother refused media attention. Incident closed. Child's name redacted. Rescuer, Ishan R. Age 7. Her breath caught. He had saved her. But the name was blacked out. Her name. And worse, in red ink, someone had stamped the words. Memory. Therapy recommended. Patient undergoing suppression. Tears blurred her vision. Why had they erased it? Why had no one told her? Who was trying so hard to make her forget Ishan? When she left the records room, the sun had set. And standing under the lamplight near the back gate of the hostel was a man. Not Ishan. Older. In a security uniform. But he wasn't one of the regular guards. She slowed her pace, pretending to check her phone. He didn't move. Didn't speak. But his gaze locked with hers, and her skin crawled. Something about his eyes, empty, cold, familiar in the worst way. She walked faster. The moment she entered the hostel lobby, she ran up to her room and locked the door. Panting, shaking, she pressed her back to the door. And then she saw it, on her desk. A folded paper. She hadn't left that there. She walked over, hands trembling, and unfolded it. No greeting, no signature. Just one line, written in ink. You're digging too deep. Some memories should stay buried. Her fingers froze. Her breath came in short bursts. And then, a knock. Her head snapped toward the door. A knock. Soft, deliberate. Not a roommate, not a friend. No one knocked this late. She didn't move. Another knock. Then a voice, muffled through the wood. Anaya, it's me. Ishan. Open up. Relief flooded her. She rushed to unlock it. But when she swung the door open, no one was there. Just the echo of footsteps fading down the hall. And a second paper now taped to the outside of her door. This one said, that wasn't Ishan. Chapter 6. Shadows Between the Heartbeats. Anaya didn't sleep. She sat with her back pressed to the headboard, hugging her knees, staring at the window. The second note rested beside her, mocking her sanity with its cryptic warning. That wasn't Ishan. But who else would know the exact tone of his voice? She didn't want to believe it, but every instinct in her body told her something was wrong. The footsteps in the hall hadn't matched the rhythm of Ishan's. They were heavier, calculated, measured, like a predator's. She pressed her fingers to her lips, recalling how Ishan had kissed her forehead the night before. That warmth, that emotion. Was it real? Was it safe to feel anything for him anymore? Just as her thoughts began to spiral, her phone vibrated. A message. From Ishan. Don't open the door for anyone, not even me. I'll explain everything tomorrow night. Meet me in the botanical garden at 11 p.m. She stared at the screen. So he hadn't come earlier. Whoever had knocked wasn't him. The next day at college was worse than ever. Students laughed and passed notes as always, but Anaya felt as if she were walking through smoke. Everything blurred, voices distant. Even her best friend Nidhi noticed. "Are you okay, Ar? You look like you've seen a ghost." Anaya gave a hollow smile. "Just tired." She couldn't tell Nidhi anything. It wasn't safe. Not until she figured out what game she was in and who was moving the pieces. Night came, quiet and heavy. At 10:45 p.m., Anaya slipped out of her room, hoodie over her head, phone clutched tightly in her hand. She used the rear stairwell and climbed over the low wall at the corner of the hostel compound. She reached the botanical garden 5 minutes before 11. It was eerily beautiful. The moonlight filtered through the tall trees, casting soft silver shadows on the stone path. The fragrance of night-blooming jasmine surrounded her, familiar and haunting. And then, he stepped out from behind a tree. Ajan. His expression shifted when he saw her. Relief, pain, fear, all tangled in his eyes. "I'm sorry," he said, moving closer. "About last night. Someone's pretending to be me." Anaya stiffened. Who would do that? Ishan looked around before answering. "Someone who doesn't want us to remember what happened when we were kids." He took out a small box from his coat pocket. Inside it was an old, faded hair clip. Her heart stopped. "I found this near the riverbank," he said. "The day I saved you. It belonged to you." Anaya reached for it, memories flickering in her mind like fireflies in the dark. Water. Screaming. Hands pulling her to safety. And this clip slipping from her hair. Ishan. "I'm starting to remember." He nodded. "They tried to erase it. All of it. But something went wrong. My memory came back in pieces, and so did the dreams. And now that I've come close to you again, it's accelerating." "What is everything?" he whispered. "The dreams, the danger, the connection between us. Someone's trying to stop it from surfacing." He hesitated. "Someone from your family. I can't say more yet. But tonight I needed to see you, to tell you that everything you're feeling, this fear, this connection between us, it's real." Anaya's lips parted, her heart pounding in her chest. "I don't know what this is anymore." He reached up and gently touched her cheek. "It's more than just the past," he said. "It's always been more." The air thickened around them. And when he kissed her, soft, slow, trembling like it was the first time either of them had dared to touch something so fragile, it felt like the entire night paused to watch. For a few seconds, the fear faded. They were just two people, two souls drawn back together after a lifetime apart. But then, a twig snapped. They broke apart. From the corner of her eye, Anaya saw movement, dark, silent, watching them from behind the trees. Ishan grabbed her hand. "Run." Chapter 7. The Hidden Room. The moment Ishan whispered run, Anaya's instincts took over. He didn't look back. Leaves cracked underfoot as they bolted through the winding garden paths. Moonlight slashed through the trees. Something, or someone, was following them, close enough for Anaya to hear branches snapping, breath catching. She clung to Ishan's hand as he led her through a narrow gap in the wall behind the garden. a hidden passage between the fencing and an abandoned storage shed. Once inside, he slammed the door and bolted it shut. Silence. Only the sound of their panting breaths in the darkness. "Aishan," she whispered, trembling. "Who was that?" "I don't know," he said, voice low, controlled, but his hands were shaking. "But he's not just watching anymore. He's following us now. We don't have much time." He reached for an old tarp in the corner and pulled it back, revealing a trap door under the wooden floorboards. "What is this?" she asked, stepping back. He looked at her, eyes filled with urgency. The truth. Or part of it. The ladder led to a narrow tunnel. It smelled of dust and damp metal. The air was stale. A single lantern lit the path. "I found this a year ago," Ishan said as they walked, "after I started digging into my childhood. It connects to the old east wing of the hostel, long sealed off after a fire 20 years ago." Anaya's heart dropped. "That fire? Wasn't that where your mother worked?" "Yes." Anaya stopped in her tracks. "Aijan, you think my mother is part of this?" "I think she knew something big, and someone didn't want her to talk." Anaya felt the chill of betrayal crawl across her skin. They reached a door at the tunnel's end. Ishan used an old iron key to unlock it. Inside was a forgotten dormitory room. Dust covered every surface, but the walls were lined with photographs, documents, newspaper clippings. It was like a secret investigation board, only it centered around her. Childhood photos of Anaya, a burnt hospital chart, a hand-drawn map of the hostel's east wing, a newspaper clipping about the fire titled "Tragedy at Hostelite. One dead, records lost." "Ishan, why do you have this?" He turned to her, his voice gentle. "Because your name wasn't always Anaya. Before the river, you were called Saya. After you nearly drowned, your mother changed your name and identity to protect you." "Protect me from what?" He stepped closer. "From the man who tried to drown you?" The world tilted. Her knees buckled and Ishan caught her before she hit the floor. "She thought, if you forgot, you'd be safe," he said. "But forgetting didn't make him disappear. He's still out there. And now, he knows you're remembering." Anaya's head spun. The drowning, the erasure of her past, the fire. Her whole life had been built on a buried trauma. Ishan sat beside her, his voice low. "I didn't just fall in love with you now, Anaya. I've loved you since that day by the river. I never forgot you, not even once." Her heart shattered and stitched back together in the same beat. She reached for his hand, fingers trembling. "Aishan, I'm scared." He looked into her eyes. "So am I, but we'll face this together." They sat in the silence of the forgotten room, two hearts beating fast in the echo of truth. Outside, the wind howled, and down the tunnel, from the direction they'd come, a slow creaking sound. Footsteps. Coming closer. Chapter 8. The Voice in the Dark. Anaya and Ishan froze. The sound echoed through the tunnel. Measured footsteps, slow and deliberate, crunching on dust and gravel. The dim lantern flickered, as if reacting to a presence neither of them could see. Ishan grabbed the handle of the trapdoor and pulled it down, bolting it shut with the interior latch. "We're not alone anymore," he whispered. Anaya's pulse thundered in her ears. She had never felt fear this sharp, this real. It wasn't just about the mystery anymore. Someone was hunting them. Ishan grabbed a flashlight from under the old cot and motioned for her to stay quiet. They retreated to the far side of the hidden dorm room, where a rusted wardrobe stood in the corner. He opened it. Empty, except for a false panel at the back. He pressed it. A small space opened, barely enough for 2 people to crouch. A last resort hiding spot. In, he said. They squeezed inside. Ishan pulled the panel shut just as the footsteps reached the tunnel door. A pause. Heavy. Priya Kuk. The iron door opened. Anaya held her breath, afraid even the sound of her heartbeat would give them away. A man entered the room. His boot scraped softly on the dusty floor. And then he spoke, in a cold, low whisper that froze Anaya's blood. "You never should have come back, Saya." The voice. It was familiar, not just from her nightmares, but from real life. A voice she had trusted once. A voice that had read her bedtime stories, that had laughed at family dinners. Tears pricked her eyes. It couldn't be. Ishan looked at her in the darkness, his jaw tight. He'd heard it too. The man moved around the room. Papers rustled. Something shattered. Perhaps a glass frame. He was searching. For her. For proof. Then, his phone rang. One beep. He answered. Yes. I'm in the room. No sign of her. But she was here. With the boy. Yes. I'll find them before sunrise. He hung up. Then silence again. And after what felt like forever, the sound of boots retreating. The door creaked shut. The footsteps faded. They stayed hidden for 10 more minutes before Ishan slowly opened the false panel. Anaya emerged, legs trembling. Her throat was tight with rage and confusion. She turned to Ishan. That voice? That was my uncle. Ishan nodded. I know. But he raised me. After Mom died, he took care of me. I trusted him. Ishan's voice was quiet. That's how monsters survive, by hiding inside the people we love. Anaya slumped into the chair beside the dusty desk. Her mind reeled. The memories were unspooling faster now. Half images, screams underwater. A shadow holding her down. Her uncle's face, cold, unforgiving. Was the one who tried to drown me, she whispered. Ishan knelt in front of her, his hands on hers. Yes. And now he knows you remember. They couldn't stay in the room. Ishan gathered what they could, some papers, photos, a flash drive, and led Anaya back through a second exit tunnel that emerged near the edge of the campus woods. They walked in silence, wind cold against their faces. The world felt different now. Not just dangerous, but sharpened. Like a blade had sliced through the illusion of safety Anaya had lived in all her life. As they reached a secluded grove near the old chapel ruins, Ishan finally stopped. There's one more thing. He reached into his coat and pulled out a small, leather-bound notebook. I found this in your mother's locked drawer 2 years ago, he said. I've been trying to decode it ever since. It's written in a cipher. Anaya took it in her hands. On the first page, her mother's handwriting. If you're reading this, then Saya is in danger again. Protect her, and forgive me. Anaya's hands trembled. This was no longer about fear. It was about truth. It was about taking back her life. She looked up at Ishan, her voice steady now. We end this together. And under the stars, in the ruins of a forgotten sanctuary, he pulled her into his arms. Not just to kiss her, but to promise her they would survive this. And maybe, just maybe, find love in the ashes of everything that tried to destroy them. Chapter 9. The Reckoning. Anaya sat in the back seat of the cab, her eyes locked on the silhouette of the college hostel growing smaller behind her. She wasn't fleeing. It wasn't fear anymore that pulled her away. It was purpose. She and Ishan had everything they needed now: her mother's journal, the files from the secret room, and the truth echoing in her memory loud and clear. Her uncle had tried to kill her. Her mother had died protecting that truth. And now, Anaya would finish what her mother started. The next morning, Anaya and Ishan stood in front of an old law office in the city. Inside sat Mrs. Venkataraman, a retired prosecutor who once investigated the original hostel fire, but was silenced when her case notes went missing. She looked through the flash drive and the journal pages, her eyes widening with every word. "This is enough to reopen the case," she said. "The man you call your uncle, he wasn't just involved, he orchestrated it. For money, for silence, for power." Ishan clenched his fists. "And he still walks free." "Not for long," the old woman said with fire in her voice. "You've just lit the match." That evening, back at the campus, Anaya returned, this time not to hide but to confront. With Ishan by her side, she entered the East Corridor, where her uncle now worked as a guest lecturer. As expected, he tried to pretend everything was fine. But Anaya's eyes were clear, steady. "I remember everything," she said. "The river, the fire, my mother's screams. And your hand pushing me under?" The man froze, just for a second, then he smiled. "You can't prove it." "I don't have to. The police are on their way. And this campus has cameras now." He paled. "I knew you were sick," she continued. "But I didn't realize how deep the rot went. How many lives you destroyed to stay clean. But it ends here." And with that, she turned and walked away, her steps steady, her heart pounding with victory. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance. A week later, everything changed. The media exploded with the story. Former trustee and guest professor arrested in connection to the 2002 hostel fire and attempted murder of his niece, now a student at the same college. Anaya stood before a crowd of classmates and reporters as the college held a candlelight vigil in honor of her mother. She looked up at the sky, a quiet tear sliding down her cheek. "I remember now, Amma," she whispered. "And I will never forget again." 2 months later, spring arrived, with blossoms spilling over the garden where everything began. Room 308 had been renovated, the lock fixed, the window replaced, but it still held memories of whispers, danger, and stolen kisses. Anaya now lived off campus in a small flat, with sunlight pouring in every morning, and Ishan's arms around her every night. They didn't just fall in love because of trauma or danger. They fell in love because of truth. Because they chose each other again and again, even when everything around them fell apart. One rainy evening, she found a box on the windowsill. No name, just a ribbon. Inside was a necklace. A tiny river pendant, with a note that said, "For the girl who rose from the water and taught me how to breathe again. Ishan." She pressed it to her chest, her heart full. He came up behind her and wrapped his arms around her waist. "You okay?" he whispered. She turned to him, eyes glistening. "I'm more than okay. I'm finally alive." And as thunder rolled in the distance and rain streaked the glass outside room 38, they kissed. Not to forget the past, but to seal the future. Together, never forever.